Writing a melody is like having a conversation. What matters isn't just the words you use, but what you mean. Most tutorials miss this and teach melody like it's math. Plug in a scale, draw in MIDI notes, follow the rules, and boom, a melody. But that's why so much music sounds generic. A great melody isn't assembled, it's felt, it's heard, it's expressed. So in this video, I'm going to show you 10 creative secrets that make your music unforgettable and reveal how to write melodies that listeners truly feel. And be sure to stick till the very end because you'll hear something you've never heard in any other video before. It's going to totally blow your mind. Hey yo, I'm Alex. I'm a musician, producer, and certified audio engineer here to help you discover your unique sound, finish professional quality music that you love, and become the best version of yourself through the creative process. Ever get stuck writing melodies that feel robotic or uninspired? The fastest way to make your melodies impactful without worrying about theory is to treat them like you're speaking. When you talk to someone, you don't obsess over grammar or rules, you just speak intuitively and communicate your message. Melody works in the same way. You already know how to express yourself with words, so let's tap into that. It's not about the notes or the techniques you use, it's about what you want to say. The real secret is getting clarity on what you want to express through melody and remove any friction that gets in the way. No tip or trick will give you that. So how do we apply this? Use the parallels between music and language to easily unlock your musical voice. Because music is a language and it uses the same tools. So step one is to think in phrases. Just like a conversation, melody has phrasing. Musical lines use intentional pauses, emphasis, and punctuation, just like a sentence. So when you write a melody, keep these in mind. Step two, express, don't just write notes. How you deliver a phrase changes its meaning. For example, say, "What are you doing?" with these different expressions. You can say it as a genuine question, "What are you doing?" A suspicious accusation, "What are you doing?" Or even as a flirty tease, "What are you doing?" Same words, different meaning. Melody works in the same way. The spirit behind a melody changes the meaning of the notes. Step three, use call and response. Ever notice how great conversations have a natural flow and bounce back and forth? That's call and response. Try writing a melody, question an open-ended phrase, then answer it with a response, a phrase that resolves or contrasts. One phrase goes up, the next goes down. One is short and syncopated, the other is long and smooth. This creates natural flow and keeps your melody feeling human. And by doing this, you create shape, tension, contrast, and resolution with no theory required. And pro tip, just like in an important conversation or the punchline of a joke, you do not want to spoil the payoff. So avoid telegraphing the notes in your melodies with other parts. This will allow more space in the notes of your melody to shine, as well as preserve the harmonic freshness of the climax in your melody. So remember, what notes you don't play is just as important as what notes you do play. Most people obsess over the right notes, but when you focus on phrasing, expression, and call and response, your melody will feel connected and cohesive. By the way, if you want my entire workflow system to help you take action on the techniques I share with you in this video, as well as get music you love past the finish line, you can download it with the link below. But even when you try to write lines that flow like speech, it can still feel meandering and forgettable, just like a bunch of disconnected segments instead of one flowing stream of consciousness. So how do you make your phrases feel memorable and confident, like they belong together? When most people write melodies, they obsess over which notes to use, agonizing over the right pitches. But there's actually hidden DNA behind a memorable melody. Take Usher's song, "Yeah." Love it or hate it, the hook is memorable. But if we strip it down, you'll notice something wild. It's basically just one note. What makes it stick? The rhythm. Even a single pitch can be powerful if the rhythm is interesting, strong, and confident. In fact, you can get away with some pretty strange note choices as long as your rhythm is rock solid. So before you worry about which notes to use, focus on writing a killer rhythm. A strong rhythm can turn even the simplest melody into a super strong hook. So let me demo for you rhythmic first writing. And what this is simply looking at your melody rhythmically before even thinking about pitches, which will make a massive difference. I'm simply going to play one pitch to start, which will be C. And I'll start off by using what I would call a boring rhythm. So if I play 2, 3, 4. So say that's our rhythm that we're working with. Not that strong of a rhythm. It doesn't really matter what notes I choose. If I follow that rhythm, it's going to be kind of boring. So if I, let's say, just play around with C minor for a bit in that rhythm, see what we can get. 2, 3, 4. So decent, but I'm going to be limited by the simplicity and lack of interesting rhythm there. So to create a more interesting rhythm, I'm going to focus on clave, which sounds like this. 2, 3, 4. And what I'm doing there is counting 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4 very fast, right? Da 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 da, right? So now if I use the exact same kind of notes that we were playing with, but with this different rhythm, notice the difference. So even if you're using that as a lattice and you don't have to hit every subdivision, having that rhythm as the foundation is going to open up your melody writing a ton. Let's put this into practice. Let's flip the usual process and start with rhythm. So number one is to write a rhythm with a single pitch. Start by tapping out, playing, or singing a catchy rhythm using just one note. Don't even think about changing the pitch yet. Just lock in the groove. Number two is to play with tension and release. Rhythm isn't just about timing. It's about push and pull. Strong beats will have stability, while off beats will create more surprise and tension. So use these to keep things interesting and develop a rhythm that has a strong push and pull. And then three is to experiment with clave. So this could be a 3-3-2, a 3-3-3-3-4, or other claves. And these can lead to really interesting melodic patterns. When you start with rhythm, even the simplest combinations of notes can become memorable. But once you've got a strong rhythm, how do you know what notes to actually choose? Most artists pick a scale and assume every note is fair game. But here's the truth. Not every note is created equal. Some are stable, some are colorful, and some are downright tense. So if you want your melody to move people, it's helpful to know which notes do what. So imagine the notes in your melody as a cast of characters. Some are calm and steady, and think of them as anchors. So this could be the 1, 3, and the 5 in a major scale. Others bring color and excitement, the 2 and 6 in the major scale. A few bring drama and tension, the 4 and 7. So here's a breakdown of the hierarchy of notes in the major scale. The 1, 3, and 5, super stable. The 2 and 6, colorful. The 7, tense, but can be very colorful too. And the 4, the most tense, really wants to resolve. And here's the breakdown of the hierarchy of notes in a minor scale. The 1, flat 3, and 5, super stable. The 4 and the flat 6, colorful. The flat 7, tension, but also can be colorful. And then the 2 has a lot of tension and really wants to resolve. So understanding which notes are stable, colorful, or tense in the context of the music you're working on gives you another dimension of control over your melody's emotional journey. Let me show you the hierarchy of notes real quick so you can get your ears around what I'm saying. So what we're going to do is just keep it simple is by playing C major in the key of C major. All the white keys on a keyboard starting on C. Okay, that's going to be our key center. And to build a chord in this key, I'm just going to play the 1, 3, and 5 of that scale to build a chord. But instead of playing it in this position, I'm going to take this E and and kick it up an octave and play this open voicing. Okay, and then I'm going to play it down here. That's going to be our harmonic bedrock, which is the key of C major. Okay, and now we're going to explore each tone over this to see what it does, right? So let's start with the root note, the C. Okay, very stable, right? It feels like home base because it's the most core note. Everything in this key center is being attracted to C, right? So again, super stable, but we're not really moving anywhere. If you're just playing this, it's kind of boring. We're just staying at home, right? The next note I want to explore is the fifth. So it's the fifth note of the scale. This G, again, super stable, beautiful sound, but it's not really moving us anywhere. It's just kind of reinforcing the chord that we're playing, right? Because this note is in the chord we're playing. Very, like, almost sounds triumphant, royalty, strong. Okay, let's explore the next one. This major third, okay, the E. Again, super, super stable, but gives us a little bit more of that positive color, that major color, right? So still very nice sound, but if you're just playing these tones, we're not really moving anywhere, right? That's why they're the most stable. The next tones I want to explore are the 2 and the 6. So again, the second note of the scale, this D or the 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or the A. Okay, so if we play the D over this C major chord, right? Notice how it's starting to bring some color, right? A very open, beautiful sound. I love this sound. But notice how it creates a little bit of tension. It kind of wants to resolve somewhere up to the 3, right? Way more stable, little bit of tension. Stable, tension, right? The next tone we'll explore is this A, right? This A, ooh, we're adding a color now. Notice how this is a little bit more tension, right? We're adding some color. Beautiful. Maybe we want to fall down to the 5, right? Go up to the root note. So I just want to show you that this 2 and the 6, way more unstable than the 5, 3, 1. And the next one I want to introduce is the major 7th. So if we play up the scale, that's going to be the B, right? The major 7. Notice how that's a lot of tension. This really wants to resolve to this tone, right? Oh, where are we going? Oh, a little bit of tension still. Ah, release. Okay, and the last one is the 4th, this F, and the F is quite tense as well, right? If we just listen to these notes together, it kind of wants to go somewhere. Like, this is quite tense, right? We probably want to go down the 3, right? Or up to the 5. But just hanging out on the 4, pretty tense. And I just want to quickly show you the same thing for the minor tonality. Okay, so we're going to think of C minor. Okay, these notes. We don't have to worry about the notes. And the same thing in the chord. Instead of a major, I'm just going to drop down this 3rd to the E flat. So now we have a minor tonality. And it's the same thing in a minor scale, that we're going to have the 1 is extremely stable, the 5 extremely stable, and the flat 3 in this case, which is giving us the darker color, right? So it's giving us the dark color, but again, in the context of a C minor, this is very stable. That's kind of the home base vibe that we're in, right? And then if we move forward, it's a little bit different in a minor key, where it's going to be the 4 and the flat 6 that are giving us the color. Okay, so if we look at the 4, which was super tense in the major key, it's a little bit more colorful. It's less tense, but still colorful in a minor key. Right? Ooh, that's some nice color. Beautiful, right? And then the next one is the flat 6 over here. Ooh, that's some drama. Right? Oh, a little tense. We kind of want to resolve to the 5, right? Right? And then the next one is the flat 7 in this case. Quite tense. That really wants to kind of go up to the root. It's a beautiful minor 7 chord. right? But it kind of wants to resolve. So the 7 is quite a bit of tension. Kind of wants to go up. The 2 in a minor key is the most tense note, right? This is very dramatic, right? Kind of wants to resolve. You might want to go up to the flat 3, but hanging out on that 2, very tense, okay? So all this to show you is that all notes in a scale, if you're thinking C minor, are not created equal, right? If I'm playing the 2 over a C minor chord, that's a lot of tension versus if I'm playing the 5, way more stable. So how do we use this hierarchy to write melodies in practice? So number 1 is to experiment with pentatonic scales. Pentatonic scales naturally filter out the most unstable notes, leaving you only with very strong or colorful tones. They're a shortcut to get to writing melodies that sound great. So number 2 is to target strong or weak beats with your melody. So place your home bass notes on strong beats for stability, use color and tension notes on off beats or as passing tones to create movement and drama. 3, emphasize tension and release. Use tension notes to create moments of suspense, then resolve back to stable notes for satisfying payoffs. This push and pull is what will give your melody an emotional interest. So remember, don't just run up and down notes of the scale. Use this hierarchy of notes to shape your melody story by focusing on building tension and release. But sometimes composing from a scale or key can feel a little bit robotic and overly calculated. So how can we make sure that your melody feels expressive? What's the quickest way to write a melody that feels honest and natural? The key is to remove the gap between what you feel and what you write. When you can successfully bridge your internal emotional state with external sound, your melodies will become truly authentic. But how do you do this? Well, you don't need to be a great singer. I'm certainly no pro, but your voice is the most direct connection you have to feeling the music you make. Let me show you what I mean. Try humming a note and you will literally feel it resonate in your body. Lower notes will vibrate in your chest, and as you go higher, the feeling moves up towards your throat and eventually is going to go to your head voice. This is your body's built-in feedback mechanism for sensing vibration. The more familiar you get to noticing where different pitches feel in your body, the easier it will be to feel the melodies that you're writing. Building this awareness of pitch in your body will make it so much easier to create a connection, and it will develop your ear. When you use your voice, even just humming or scatting, you bypass techniques and theory and just tap straight into your intuition. And that's how you can find melodies that feel good, not just sound good. All right, next we're going to talk about the power of composing with your voice, even if you're not a vocalist. Now, I would not call myself a vocalist. I do some backups and some harmonies in my band and stuff, but I would never be like the front man of a project. Maybe down the road, who knows? But in this case, even if I don't feel like a vocalist, I can totally still use my voice to compose melodies, and it's such a great tool and it's great ear training. So what I'm going to do is I just set up an audio track with my microphone going through it so I can record my voice, and I just found like a loop, and in this case you would just do it on the music that you're working on, but I have this like loop in A minor or something, sounds like this, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this playing in session view. I'm going to go over to arrangement view. I'm going to loop this section, make sure I'm recording to this audio track, and I'm just going to hum whatever comes up as I'm finding notes in this scale and over this loop, and just try to feel my way into it. I'm just going to record a bunch of takes without much care if it's good or bad, and see if we can maybe comp together something that is helpful. So all you have to do is record a take and continue to loop takes on top of each other and go from there. I've recorded a bunch of hilarious takes of me humming over this thing. And again, I'm not concerned about the quality of my voice. I'm looking for inspiration to find a cool melody. I'm just going to go here, right click, and show take lanes. Now I have all of these takes that I've recorded, and I can maybe see if I've found anything. Listen back by clicking this little button. Now I'm listening to the last take. Maybe I like this last part. So I could highlight this, press enter. Now it's going to make our master comp at the top. And then if I want to listen to the take previously, I'm just going to hit this little icon, and now I can listen to it. Maybe select this section, throw it up to the top, so on and so forth. So once I had a really rough comp of my vocals, sounds like this. So, not the best singing, but I transposed it and played it on this other synth instrument and transposed it up an octave. Now, if I mute my vocals and listen to it over the backing track, there's a pretty cool melody that just came through singing. All right, so how do you do this in practice even if you don't consider yourself a singer? One is to match notes with your voice. So play a note on your instrument, then try to match it with your voice. Notice where you feel the vibration, chest, throat, or head. Then, once you feel comfortable, try to sing the next note that you're hearing and then find it with your instrument and see how close you are. This will take practice, but the closer you can get to being able to target notes through singing, the easier everything else will be to write melodies. Playing instruments, programming the piano roll, adding harmonies, you name it. 2, record yourself exploring your voice. Take an idea that you're working on, get it to loop, then sing, hum, or scat freely, and don't worry about sounding good. The goal is to explore and capture honest musical ideas as they come in their raw form, and no one is listening but you. Then, once you've done a few passes of improvisation, you can comp together your favorite parts or identify one of your favorite ideas to develop it further. 3, apply expressive tools. Use some of the expressive tools we covered earlier. As you're improvising, keep in mind phrasing, rhythm, pauses, emphasis, and let your voice guide you just as you would in a conversation. And remember, you don't need vocal chops to use your voice as a melody writing tool. You can always transpose it to an instrument later, but when you let yourself feel the music first, you'll discover melodies that are honest, memorable, and uniquely yours that you probably couldn't have thought up or programmed. And over time, as you get better at this, you'll eventually be able to do this through your instrument of choice. But sometimes, after we do this for a while, you might realize that you tend to do the same things when you're writing melodies, which isn't a bad thing, but what happens when that starts to feel stale? A melody doesn't exist in a vacuum. The chords behind it are just as important as the notes you choose in your melody. So if you want your melodies to be more powerful and interesting, don't just tweak the melody, change the chords underneath it. Harmony is the context that gives your melody meaning. A note that sounds dissonant over one chord can sound beautiful over another. Think of it like this. Imagine a rose in a meadow. It's a symbol of beauty and peace and serenity, but put that same rose at the end of a gun in a graveyard, and suddenly it has a completely different meaning. The context changes everything. So let me remind you of a key principle. Chord tones equal consonance, stability, or resolve, while non-chord tones create tension, color, or dissonance. Then you can drastically transform the emotional impact of your melody without touching it. Chords are your secret weapon for this type of storytelling. All right, next let's talk about using expressive harmony, where basically we can change the chords underneath a melody to drastically change the feeling and the meaning that each note has. This is a way to drastically change your melody and level it up without actually changing your melody. So let's check it out. We're going to write a pretty safe, pretty normal sounding chord progression underneath our melody. So in this case, we're in A minor, and I'm just going to play around with chords in A minor underneath our melody. All right, so let's give that a go. 2, 3, 4. All right, so there's nothing wrong with that progression. Essentially what I'm doing is just using chords that you'll find within the scale that we're in, A minor. I'm playing the 1 chord, going down to the 7 major chord, 6 major chord, back up to the 7. And then the second time through, again, 1 minor, 7 major, 3 chord, which is also a major chord, and then 6. So this is called being diatonic, and we're just staying within a key center, and it sounds great with our melody, right? So this is what it sounds like together. All right, so let me show you how different they can sound if we mess around with some of the chords underneath. All right, so let's listen back to how different this sounds. Number one, analyze and experiment with your chords. Look at the chords that you're using and try changing the voicing or using a different inversion. And even small changes like this can create new tensions and resolutions. This is the most subtle way to reposition the notes in your melody to have slightly different meanings without doing much to the harmony. Number two is use extensions and altered chords. Instead of just playing basic 1-3-5 triads or 1-3-5-7 seventh chords, try adding in ninths, 11ths, and 13ths, and even try altering them. You can even do fun things like avoiding playing the third of a chord and playing the second or the fourth instead. These create richer and more interesting backgrounds for your melody to play against. Three, pick a note in your melody and build a new chord around it. This gives that note a brand new emotional context to exist within, sometimes turning a weak note into the star of the show. There are many ways to reharmonize a melody, but a few ways you can try are to borrow a chord from the parallel major or minor key, use modal interchange to find other interesting chords, or just use your ear and create a new chord to recontextualize the tone in your melody. And don't forget to use the non-telegraphing tip that we explored earlier. It's a super powerful tool to use when reharmonizing. But even with expressive harmony, some melodies still don't quite land. They sound either too predictable or strangely disconnected, like something's missing. Ever been working on a melody and just noticed that it feels flat, static, or just forgettable? This usually happens when it's way too predictable and the brain tunes out when there's no surprise. So how do we keep things interesting? So for example, let's break down Happy Birthday, a song everybody knows and the perfect example of how skips and steps work together. 1. Steps to start. The melody begins with small stepwise movements. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. These small moves makes the tune easy to sing and gives a sense of stability. 2. A dramatic skip. But here comes the twist. Happy birthday, dear whoever's name. And suddenly there's a leap, a skip to the highest note in the song. This jump grabs your attention and creates an exciting climax. 3. Steps to resolve. After that big leap, the melody steps back down and repeats the same rhythm. Happy birthday to you. These small steps resolve the tension from the skip and bring the melody home. That leap up in the third phrase creates a sense of expectation. Your ear is waiting for the melody to resolve. So if we stop there, there's a clear tension that wants to resolve. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Corey. Right? If I end there, it's just, there's some tension. Skips and steps each have their own personality. Skips add drama and surprise, while steps bring smoothness and stability. The real magic happens when you contrast both. Too many steps and a melody feels safe but forgettable. Too many skips and it sounds chaotic. Happy Birthday is super memorable because it balances both. Steps for flow, skips for drama, and a clear melodic contour that tells a story. So how do we use skips and steps practically? 1. Visualize the contour. Visualize your melody as a line. Maybe it ascends in steps, then leaps dramatically, then descends back down. Imagine this contour before filling in the notes. Again, Happy Birthday ascends with steps, then leaps dramatically, then descends down for resolve. 2. Create your own contour. Use steps to build up or wind down and skips to create peaks or surprises. Bring up the energy with the skip and then resolve it down with steps or vice versa. This push and pull keeps your melody engaging from start to finish. 3. Set up expectation. Just like the leap in Happy Birthday, find a spot in your melody to potentially create a climax. Get creative with this. If you want your melodies to be unforgettable, don't just move note by note, but zoom out and use the power of steps and skips to create a journey that surprises, resolves, and sticks with your listener. But even with a great melodic shape while balancing skips and steps, sometimes it feels like you've exhausted all the possibilities with your main melody. It's strong, but it still feels like it could be more interesting. Next, I'll cover a strong principle to level up the engagement of your melody and take it to the next level. So far, we've been laser focused on creating a strong main melody, the lead voice that grabs the listener's attention. But sometimes, even the best melody could use a little bit extra spark, something to add emotion, energy, and dimension without changing the main line itself. Think of a supporting character in a story. While the main character takes the center stage, the supporting character adds additional context, creates an interesting dynamic, and can even have their own mini storyline. This is where counter melody comes in. Think of it as a dance, sometimes echoing, sometimes answering, sometimes complementing the main line. You'll hear this a ton in film scores, orchestral arrangements, and even layered vocals in a pop song where the second melody sneaks in between the main melody's phrases, never stealing the spotlight, but always making the music richer. They don't compete. Instead, they fill in the spaces and add interest to create a sense of dialogue and layering that makes your music sound more interesting. Let's talk about the power of counter melody. So we have our existing melody here. We have some cool chords underneath. And let's say we want to spice up this melody, make it more interesting. We could simply play around with a counter melody, a sort of call and response around the main phrase. So a really simple way to do that is to have a whole other track with a different sound. And in this case, I'm just going to create a MIDI clip so that I can actually look at both of these at the same time on the piano roll. And we're going to select both of them so we can see both the green and the red notes. And I'm going to be playing with this instrument, which is this kind of like harp guitar vibe thing, this kind of sound. And we're going to start just by rhythmically placing root notes, which is our A in this case, to find where we can find space for this counter melody to weave with our main melody. So I'm going to play it in this register, and we're going to find where we can place it. So maybe we do something in the space here. Maybe we want to land on the downbeat here. Maybe here there's a lot of room. Or maybe we want to do an offbeat thing here. Maybe we leave more space this time. And maybe a few more things. And then maybe we leave that. Cool. Okay, so now we have a rhythm that is working with our main melody. And notice that if ever I'm playing a rhythm, it's during when there's longer notes being held in the main melody or empty space when the main melody is not playing. If I'm doing something during the main melody, I'm making sure that it's complementing it directly. So now that we have a rhythm, now we can think about pitch, do some harmonizing and extend the notes, actually have something that plays a counter melody, right? So maybe something like this. Right? And then here, maybe we can match the chord that's happening in the background. Okay, so maybe, fun tip in Ableton, if you hold a chord on your MIDI controller, there's tiny little dots that come up here. There. Right? And then maybe we can extend these, and that'll paint the color of the chord as a counter melody. I think that we gotta come back up here and hold stuff like this. Cool, so after a little bit of playing around and negotiating space, I'm gonna turn it down in the mix because we don't want it to take over the main melody, but listen to how we have a counter melody that's weaving around our main one now. So if I take this out, a lot less interesting. right? So it's on the verge of maybe being too busy, but for the most part, notice how it's adding context, it's adding some cool movement, but it's not really taking over, and it's always working with the main melody. So how do you create a great counter melody that supports your main line instead of fighting it? One is to start your counter melody by simply writing a rhythm that works alongside your main melody with one pitch. Two is to contrast your main melody with call and response conversation. So try using a different instrument for your counter melody and make it respond or dance around the main melody. Think about call and response or a conversation between two voices. Ideally, they're not saying something at the same time. So you'll want to weave in your counter melody during long held notes or spaces of your main melody. 3, keep it simple. The counter melody should support, not steal the show. Simple embellishments or short phrases can often work best. A great counter melody doesn't compete, it complements. It fills in space where the main melody pauses, plays in a different register, or contrasts something rhythmically. A great counterpoint melody makes your melody feel like it has extra depth, but it's a layer that isn't the main focus. It might be something that the listener notices on a second listen. But even if your melody and counter melody speak full interconnected ideas, you need to make sure that those sentences actually stick in someone's mind. If you want your melody to stick in someone's head, there's one more tool that's more powerful than harmony, phrasing, or even sound design. As artists get more advanced, we often feel the urge to add more complexity, but the real secret to unforgettable melodies is much simpler. Think about Darth Vader's theme from Star Wars. It's not complicated, it's just a short motif, and that's exactly why it's iconic. It's undeniably memorable because it's designed around the same rhythm, the same shape, and the same energy. And our brains love patterns because it's wired to notice them, remember them, and expect them. What is it? Repetition. Repetition is what makes a melody catchy. Repetition is what makes a melody easy to remember. Repetition keeps your idea simple. Repetition gives your melody an identity. Repetition can also make something that's a little bit weird and long-winded and abnormal feel a little bit more natural. See what I did there? Next, let's talk about repetition. It is so unbelievably powerful. Definitely don't underestimate this. So for example, if I play something like this, tell me how much you can remember. Can you sing any of that back to me? Versus something like this. So shout out to Super Mario 64 for any fans out there. But with this melody, right, it's the same chromatic movement that starts off a lot of the phrases, and we have the same rhythmic contour for a lot of it, right? So, right, we have this chromatic thing, and we have this rhythmic structure. That's the same thing with different notes, and we fall down. We repeat the same things 3 times. Then guess what happens next? Same exact thing. Landing on a different note, but same thing. Right? Okay, so I just want to show you that it's because of that repetition that makes that melody a little bit easier to remember. Also the fact that you might already know it. You know what I'm saying? Go bean. So how do you harness the power of repetition in your own music? 1, find existing patterns. Go back to your main melody and listen for patterns. Maybe it's a rhythm, a contour, or a phrase that naturally repeats. Chances are you'll notice micro patterns that already exist in your idea. Then ask, where can I repeat this? Can I bring it back later in the track? Can I simplify what I already have to make the pattern more obvious? 2, ask yourself, where can I repeat this idea? Can you bring that into a different section of your song? Can a different element have the same motif? Stretch your thinking here, because chances are if you can use that same motif in multiple different parts of your song, it's going to feel a lot more cohesive. 3, embrace simplicity. Don't be afraid to do less. Clarity is power. The more obvious the pattern, the more likely your melody will stick in the listener's mind. But remember, leveraging repetition isn't necessarily about making things less complicated. It's about making them more memorable. The simplest idea repeated with confidence can become legendary. So next, let's talk about how to ensure your listener can actually hear your melody through your music. Even the best melody in the world won't land if your production gets in her way. A common mistake, especially for intermediate artists, is focusing on what to add, more layers, more fills, more effects, without realizing that often what you leave out is what makes your melody shine. So for example, imagine you're at a cocktail party with 100+ people in a room. Everyone is socializing and it's pretty noisy. If you're having a conversation with 2 people in front of you, your brain automatically ignores all of the background chatter to focus in on the conversation. And sometimes, if you're honest, you zone out and start to listen to someone else beside you. And in that moment, you miss a key part of the conversation. This is called the cocktail party effect, and it highlights that our brain can only pay attention to so many things at the same time. Great producers are very aware of this, and great productions are built around the main melody so that they serve the queen, and that's very much intentional. So simply put, the melody is queen of the multiverse. Don't get in the way of her majesty. If you got a great melody, your job is simple. Do not get in her way. So how do you make sure that your melody remains in the spotlight? 1, don't telegraph your melody. We've talked about this before, but if your melody is about to hit an emotional high point, a climax, don't have your chords give it away early by playing that exact same note in your pad or an arpeggio. If your melody soars to a 9th or sharp 11, and your harmony is already laying that note down in the chord before it, the surprise is gone. The emotion flattens. So it can be much more difficult to write in a way where you're not telegraphing key points of your melody, but it's totally worth the extra effort. You want your melody to reveal something new and not just echo what we've already heard. So to put this into practice, solo your melody and your harmony. Are they hitting the same notes at the same time? And try to deliberately leave space in your chords so that the melody completes the harmony and isn't just repeating it. 2, don't crowd the melody musically. Bring in counterlines, riffs, fills, or effects only during the spaces and pauses of the main melody unless it's directly complementing what the melody is doing. Think of your melody as the main character. Other elements should support and contrast, but never compete. So look through your production and ask yourself, do you have any elements that are actively moving while the main melody is moving in a way that's non-complementary? Do you have other layers that are distracting from the main motion of the melody? If so, either remove them or change them so that they're in direct support of the melody. And 3, don't crowd the melody sonically. You want to be conscious of the frequency content of your material in your production as well. Back off pads, higher register instruments, and other mid-range effects while the melody is active. Consider shifting things up or down an octave as well if you need to. Just simple intentionality behind what's being played where in the frequency spectrum is a huge hack. And if you really need to, you could just reach for tools like sidechain compression or automation to adjust frequency content around your main melody. You can have the perfect melody, the right rhythm, the perfect space in your production, but even then, still might not land in the way that you imagined, because there's one last piece of the puzzle, a hidden force that shapes how your melody is actually heard by the brain. And once you understand it, you'll never perceive music the same way again. If you made it this far, you're a legend. But now let's blow your mind with one last invisible force that shapes how your music is experienced. It's not about how you write, it's about how your listener's brain perceives what it hears. In psychology, there's this framework called Gestalt principles. It explains how our brain makes sense of complex inputs by grouping things into meaningful patterns. Think of a school of fish. You don't see 87 little fish. You see one giant shape moving as a whole. And this isn't just for sight, it's for sound too. So when it comes to melody, your job isn't just to write notes, it's to guide the listener's brain to hear them as one unified idea. If you understand how the brain groups musical ideas, you can write melodies that feel connected, memorable, and truly satisfying no matter how complex or simple the group of notes themselves might be. So how do you leverage this amazing concept of Gestalt principles to make your melody stick together in the listener's mind? Let's look at 3 core Gestalt principles that directly apply to not only melody, but your music as a whole. 1, proximity. Notes that are close together in time or pitch will be grouped together as a single element by the brain. If you scatter notes randomly, they will feel disjointed. If you place them close together, rhythmically or melodically, they will feel more connected. So you can ask yourself, how can I leverage this to create more tightly clear phrases or to play with the perception of my listener? 2, similarity. As we've covered, the brain loves repetition. Repeating similar patterns, contours, or intervals help ideas stick together. A repeated motif, pattern, or concept will give your melody a recognizable shape. Pro tip, use similar shapes, rhythms, patterns, or concepts across different sections of your piece to unite your ideas. So this could be, for example, only doing jumps by a major sixth. That's a very specific type of movement, but if you repeat it enough, the brain will start to lock onto it like a pattern. 3, continuity. Smooth directional movement creates flow. Melodic lines that ascend or descend fluidly are heard as one continuous thought. So be aware if your phrases have clear direction, a contour that leads the ear and feels like a journey. So music as a whole is really a mirror of how our internal world works in our mind. For music to feel continuous, you want it to have a stream of consciousness that makes sense. And if you can find a way to match how your mind works and embed it into your music, it's going to make your music feel that much more original. All of these secrets are super powerful on their own, and especially if you start using some of them in combination, but they're all useless unless you actually put them into practice. So if you want to learn a repeatable process so that you can take action on all of these tips and get your music past the finish line, definitely check out this next video for a step-on-step guide on how to finish music that's truly unforgettable. So I will see you in that video.